All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless, me back again, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there just like you and just like me. All right, more sad and puzzling news about a really great musician. His name is Nick Colionne. Nick Colionne passed away on New Year's Day suddenly, unexpectedly, according to his publicist. Um, he was hospitalized December 31st with some pain. That's what they say, just with some pain, and died early the next morning at St. Joseph's Hospital in Elgin, Illinois, according to a news release provided by Representative Christine Clark. His age was unknown. Okay, now, based on the way Nick looked, I would say 40s, maybe, like mid 40s. He had been putting out albums since I think about 2004, 2006. Full disclosure, all right, this format, which is called smooth jazz, is a big time guilty pleasure of mine. It is something that I will get into for months on end, and I will just absorb it. Guys like Norman Brown and Doc Powell originally got me into this, and Nick Colionne is certainly a continuation of that sound. You could always invite Nick Colionne to a really nice fancy dinner. Like if you were preparing, an Italian meal and you had some fine wine, Nick would be a welcome guest. His playing just superb. He was just a fluent and melodic and just friendly guitar player. In other words, he just brought a great tone, a great atmosphere to whatever you were doing. His last album, Finger Painting, it really is a work of art. Tons of great music on that album, and you can play that like most of these albums you can play from start to finish. I got into this format back in the 90s, like when all the other music started to really suck. I started to look into other things like country and smooth jazz, which typically don't go together at all. But again, I would binge on one format and go back to another format. And with smooth jazz, I am a binge eater, and I tend to go off and not come back for quite some time. But again, what did Nick pass away from? We don't know. And we start the new year with yet another mysterious passing. And it's just, I don't know how to explain how the reporting does this reporting by omission now, and they just won't tell you anything. Look, I understand privacy. Had this conversation during other videos that I've done. I understand that. Is it that they don't want to admit that there's a problem? And if they admit that there's a problem, the house of cards comes falling down. I think Nick Colionne's fans and friends and family probably should know the truth about what happened to Nick if Nick went and did the thing prior to December 31st. Remember, I have new terminology I'm rolling out. I am calling the extra thing the jetpack, and the good little emperor, or not so good little emperor, I should probably ditch the good, is running around telling everybody they need a jetpack. Go get your jetpack, go over to Walgreens and make sure you do it. Now, Nick, I'm sure, was playing gigs or wanted to play gigs. And in order to play the gigs, you have to jump through the hoops. I'm not blaming him. I don't even know if this happened. I don't know if this is the cause. But when you read an article like this, and by the way, hat tip to my friend David, who's a patron, who is a big fan of this format. He and I kind of secretly run around sharing smooth jazz and West Coast music. And yeah, it's a thing. I mean, if they asked me, if someone said, hey, you want to do a smooth jazz channel? I'd be like, okay, so long as they're going to pay me to do it. But I really love this format. And here's a statement from Team Colionne. We are devastated at losing Nick. Tributes by Nick's adoring fans and fellow artists around the world tell a story of an extremely talented man who lived life to the fullest and who was clearly loved by everyone. So you read this, and this is almost like, yeah, everybody loved him. So we're not gonna, I don't know, we're not gonna pursue what happened to Nick because that's not as important as the fact that everybody loved him. I get that, but his legacy, right? This guy could have been around for another 40 years, probably, right? If he's in his 40s, at least another 40 years, he would put out an album every 2 or 3 years, like clockwork. And he was working on an album, from what I understand. Nick's legacy will live on. Our thoughts and prayers are with Nick's family at this time. Well, of course. The artist team remembered Colionne as an ultra-stylish urban jazz star who released a string of independent albums in the 1990s before gaining prominence on the global jazz scene in the early 2000s. Over the course of his career, Colionne hit #1 on Billboard's Smooth Jazz Airplay chart 8 times, and he was the only smooth jazz artist with 5 #1 hits from a single album. That was 2016's The Journey, another highly recommended album by Nick Colionne. Fellow musicians publicly mourned Colionne, known to many of them as Uncle Nick. This man took me under his wing like a nephew, musician B. Boisseau wrote in an Instagram post. Sharp dressed at all times, yes. The 3-piece suit, the pinstripes, the hat. Few artists today have style anymore. Like the style that I see is usually women trying to get away with not wearing a lot of clothes and men just showing up for work, kind of a thing on the music scene. It's just become very bland. And when you take a look at Nick Colionne, you're like, okay, here's a guy who's cool. Here's a guy who caters to style and is playing the sophisticated music that you would hear at a really big and sort of luxurious dinner party. And so he's dressed just like he would be if, you know, he were actually there in person. Saxophonist Michael Langton, who had performed multiple times with Colionne since the two met many moons ago, mourned the artist he dubbed his brother. We all have the same experience with him, always fun and warm, both on and off stage. This is just really tragic. Outside of his own recording career, the artist received multiple honors, including the 1996 Malcolm X College Alumnus of the Year Award. He spent the past 20 years mentoring children at a school in the suburbs of his hometown in Chicago and received the Wayman Tisdale Humanitarian Award at the 2010 National Smooth Jazz Awards for his community work and his support of breast cancer causes. Funeral arrangements will be announced this week. Okay, so what happened to Nick? I mean, the only thing we get as far as the medical issue here is the fact that he had some pain on the 31st of December. He was hospitalized with some pain and died early the next morning. Can you see where, you know, if he had this long illness or this prior condition, nobody talks, did he have any underlying problem? That's why the antenna go up, because you're just like, okay, you just don't have a little bit of pain and then a few hours later you're gone. Did he do what he was told to do or what everybody is telling everybody to do? And another, you know, African-American, which, you know, at the beginning of all this, when Hank Aaron did the thing on television, and that was a big spectacle at the very beginning of everything. And then Hank was no more, not too long after that. So I don't know, folks. It's just all speculation on my end, but it's tragedy and it's sad. And people better wake up and understand that there are risks in life. You have to take a risk in order to get out of bed every morning, right? And, you take your chances with certain things. And, I just went through just kind of getting over the ride in the Dodge Omni. And I didn't need to do anything other than the things that I've done my entire life. Now, that's not to say that everybody is going to have the same circumstances. However, this is a fairly healthy looking man in his 40s, great guitar player, legendary smooth jazz player, and he isn't here anymore. So I don't know. No one's really asking any questions here. They're just paying tribute, and I understand the privacy and letting the dust settle, but you never hear later on what the cause was. And that's because I don't think they want you to know what the cause is. So that's my speculation. I can't prove any of this, but again, these are just adding up. They're adding up, and this was a really decent human being, and he had just such a great career. So that's my video. Nick Colionne passes away suddenly, New Year's Day. Not sure how old he was. My guess is probably mid-40s or so. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.